See if it does go to the first slide, because I start with a slide right away. And it did. Did it? Okay, I'm just looking up there. I'm thinking maybe he did it himself. Luke 9, 23 and 24. Then he said to them all, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny himself, take up their cross daily, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it. Now, we spent the past year, from January all the way through, sitting in this particular statement of Jesus, focusing mainly on the first part of it, verse 23, and using verse 24 to add a little bit of extra punch to it all. But we really haven't paid verse 24 all that much attention. And this morning what I'd like us to do is I'd like us to examine verse 24 and try and work out what it was that Jesus was saying here. What did Jesus mean when he said, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it. Now, the word translated life in this verse is the Greek word psuche, and it can mean two different things: the physical life and the life that transcends the earthly life, sometimes called the soul. So we have this play on words in the Greek where Jesus is saying you can save your life, your physical life for yourself, but lose your soul, your eternal life in the process. But if you're willing to give up your physical life for his benefit, for his sake, then you will save your life, your soul. One is temporal and the other is eternal. Your physical life is temporal. We will all die eventually, unless Jesus comes back whilst we're still alive. But we will all die. But your soul life is eternal. You don't cease to exist at the moment of your death. You continue to exist for all eternity. Now, it's interesting that he says that the pathway to losing your temporal life and then gaining eternal life is to live for his benefit. Now, to understand what Jesus was getting at here, we need to look at his statement in context. He just asked his disciples in a private setting. He'd gone away to pray, and he'd taken his disciples with him. And he just asked them who the crowds thought he was. And they responded by saying, well, some say you're Elijah, others say that you're John the Baptist, and others that you were one of the prophets from long ago who'd come back to life. And then he turns to them and says, but who do you say I am? And Peter answers and he says, you're God's Messiah. At that point, Jesus tells them not to tell anyone that he's the Messiah. And then he goes on and he tells them about his upcoming death. In verse 22, and he said, the Son of Man must suffer many things, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and he must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life. And then after verse 24 and verse 25 and 26, he says, what good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very self? Whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his glory, and in the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. Now, when Jesus said those words to his disciples, he knew that every single one of those disciples who were sitting in front of him would pay the ultimate price, other than John. They would pay the ultimate price of martyrdom in the future. And I'm sure that every one of them would have remembered this particular chat with Jesus at the time of their deaths. Now, here in Australia, you're probably not going to lose your life for your faith at this moment in history. But if you follow Jesus, there will be times when you'll be left feeling a little bit uncomfortable in certain social situations. Now, I'm not talking about sticking a fish bumper sticker on your car and having somebody give you the bird as they drive past, all right? That's not what I'm talking about. But having said that, I saw a really interesting bumper sticker a little while ago. It said, honk if you love Jesus, text if you want to meet him. It probably should be banned. Shouldn't go on the... My wife wasn't impressed with that one yesterday. But as I was looking that up, I came across another one. Some church thought that the honk thing was pretty light on. And they said,
Tithe if you love Jesus, anyone can honk. So I thought that's interesting. Now, there will be times when you may be asked by friends what you did on the weekend. And when you say you went to church, you might get a weird look. Or if your friend's a yobbo, they might laugh at you. But you definitely won't get thrown into jail or killed for your faith. Now, there are parts of the world where that still happens to this point, to this day. And who knows what the future holds. But at the moment in Australia, you're not going to get thrown into jail. And you're not going to lose your life. So the question for us living in Tasmania is, how can I lose my life for his sake when it's not life-threatening to be a Christian? How can I live my life for the benefit of Jesus? And this is where Jesus' words in Matthew 25 are really helpful for us, especially living in our current culture. In Matthew 25, Jesus is talking about his return. And he says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him. That means everybody will be before him. And he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you cared for me or looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" And the king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for your pastor. You did for your Grace Kids teacher." No, he doesn't say that at all. He says, "You did it for me. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." In his judgment of our lives, Jesus specifically correlates our good deeds for others with our service for him. We are being of benefit to Jesus when we serve others, specifically those who can't repay us.